Feels so good to be back. Guys, this is the first episode of Siobhan Speaks Social, and boy, do I have so much to tell you guys. First of all, for those of you that are new here, welcome to the show. This started off as The Boss Life with Bonds, and it was a podcast that my mentor, my business coach, kind of inspired me to do because I saw how I was just sold on him because he went live every single day. I listened to his podcast and it was so inspiring. It was so motivating. And he came from a place of empathy, but he also came from a place of do what the fuck needs to be done. And it lit a fire under my ass. And it also helped me make my first 10K month in my business. And it also was something that really helped people that were looking, women specifically, that were looking for a mentor, looking for a coach, looking for someone who could speak life into them. And it provided that place. It served me really well for my business. People would reach out to me and be ready to work with me, like on the spot, no questions asked after one call because they'd listened to my podcast and they felt like they knew me. So there was a lot going on that show. You know, the first album art, I had like a tank top on and a beanie and I'm flexing my guns. And then the second time you see me, in the second season, I'm all now spiritual and I've got stars in the background of our album art. And by the third season, if you will, you can see like I've got all these things going above my head, and I was not waiting for it as much as other people were, but it was almost like, when is it all going to drop? I've got Mind and Body Fitness. I've got Mind and Body Co. I've got Toastmasters. I've got all these things that I'm trying to do that I have floating around, going on reality TV shows, going, getting paid to speak and just doing all this stuff. And it was fitting the idea. It was perfect for who I was in that season, because in that season, I wanted to be boss babe, CEO. I mean, it was called The Boss Life with Bonds, you know? So it really fit who I was at that time. The cool part about it, though, was that you could see me gradually change in each season. And I don't just mean the podcast covers. You could hear how on season 1, I'm like, yo, stop making excuses. Yo, you want to get it? Go get it. Yo, like just very masculine, very, 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 very fierce, very confident, very no bullshit, blunt, in your face, take it on the chin. I did, you should too type business, right? By the time I eased into the second season, I started to realize like, that's not sustainable. It serves as the motivation that's getting people worked up to get something started, but it's not sustainable. And stay with me. I'm going to tie this all together. Season 3, I became a blend of all of those things. And I learned how to balance that like aggressive, very human nature that wants to get shit done with that flow and the balance and the flexibility that is often attributed to femininity. And the third season was just like the coming of those two, which is very fitting for me as a bisexual person and as someone that has just really loved the yin and yang sign my whole life. So to grow up and find out, oh, wow, that's a thing. There's supposed to be a balance. It felt really cool. But unfortunately, what happened when I was finally able to see that it doesn't have to be one or the other, that's when my healing journey got real deep. And in that summer that I was set to go on the reality TV show, I started a free series for the community called Self-Healing Summer Series. And what I didn't expect to happen was for me to completely unravel in the middle of this series that I created for other people. And in the process, I started doing lives in the Facebook group. I started coming up with curriculum to help people through their healing. And this is a very interesting thing that happened, and I see it happen a lot with people when they jump into positions of teaching or coaching or just any capacity of leadership without having like walked the road yet. You know, it's kind of like going to college, getting your degree, and then like you've done all these clinicals and you've done all these like you've done your hours, right? And then you get into the real world and you're like, oh shit, I don't have the hands-on experience. I mean, I have plenty of education, but I don't have like hands-on experience about what to do when this happens, what to do when that. And you don't have all the answers. You just know all the theories. And sometimes something that I noticed was people would get on their fitness journey and then they lose 10 pounds and now they're marketing themselves as a fitness coach. People would make their first $10,000 in their business and start marketing themselves as business coaches. And what I did, because I started my healing journey, and not because I wanted to necessarily monetize being a healing practitioner, Well, I do. That's what I do now. But it wasn't necessarily about the money. It was just like, I genuinely want to help people. If you know me, if you follow me, if you listen to me, I do this. This is a labor of love. Do I get paid from clients or does money come to me? Absolutely. But I would do this even if I wasn't getting paid, and I have been, and I'll continue to do so. But what happened in that process of me trying to put on that healing facilitator hat, or just be real, psychologist? I love psychology. I've studied psychology. That was my original major. And then I went to, okay, well, maybe it's more practical to be a nurse. So I'll work with people physically. And then it was like, well, maybe it's more practical to work with people spiritually. So I actually got a degree in ministry. Then I was like, no, it's all of them. It's mind, it's body, and it's soul. Hey, that's how we got mind and body, my business. Didn't expect to come full circle in this podcast with that. But all that to say, I broke in the middle of that series, because I started to take people down that road. Like I just said, I had done plenty of healing work on my own, but not on these areas that I was getting ready to introduce other people to. Hard hitting topics like the abandonment wound, which mine didn't run deep. So I was able to get them through that first week. But when we got to the rejection wound, when we got to the mother wound, I knew even in the middle of that live, I can't be the one to take people deeper, because I need to put a pause on my everything and go back down my own personal healing journey. So that's where the last show ended. And I know it's on YouTube. I know it's on podcasts or Spotify. I probably started it on the same one that you're listening to, so you can easily just scroll back and see the episodes before this. They were messy. They were out of order. Some of them were on YouTube. Some of them were on Spotify. The numbers were funny. It was just becoming a mess. Why? Because I was trying to keep up the facade that everything was okay, when it was quite literally unraveling. What was unraveling? Well, in 2023, I decided that I was going to take over the world. Mind and body was it. I had to prove myself to my mentor. I had to prove myself to everybody. I had come this far. I've been bragging about making 10, 15K months. It's time for me to make 20K. It's time for me to boom, 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 boom. I literally was mimicking my clients and their sprint to lose weight, sprint to be perfect overnight, without laying the foundation to do so. And then when you throw in the fact that I had ripped a Band-Aid off of a rejection and mother wound that I didn't even, quite frankly, realize was so deep. Boy, looky here. I didn't have it. I didn't have the emotional capacity. I didn't have the energy to do it. In addition to that, there was the reality TV show going on that humbled me severely. That's going to be its own episode. The Blocks, season 10. Yeah. BLOX. That humbled me in a whole new way. That hit. All these things were hitting. I started to realize that I didn't want to be the person that I had created and gassed up to be. And I just slowly started backing away and slowly started doing all the things that I thought I should do that were exhausting me, that didn't really fit who I was, that weren't who I am as a person, but were just, what looks good on social media. Make money, live life big, and rah, 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 and never stop, and never, that's not who I am. Like, do I have seasons of that? Absolutely. But that's not how I wanted to be. So I took a break. So that hopefully will get you guys up to speed on where I've been, what's been going on. And now let's talk about what's next, right? Let's talk about my intention for this podcast. At the time of this recording, it's January 8th. Donald Trump was elected president again. And I had to do a lot of reflecting, a lot of healing, and a lot of strategizing. And at first it was just like, cut everybody off that's not like us. At first it was, I'm not smiling at nobody in the street. You don't deserve my fucking contagious energy. At first it was, I'm not, nobody not black, nobody and then around the end of December, I started to calm down, started to listen to what was really going on. I started listening to the stories to the young boys who, like my sons, were on these streaming platforms, are insecure, don't have good positive male role models, because we're learning that all these people that you thought were positive male role models are actually not. And that they were looking for acceptance and they found it in the Republican Party. They found it in MAGA. Even if they were just using them and manipulating them to get their vote, they gave it to them. So I was like, okay, all these videos where I'm yelling at MAGA, all these videos where I'm yelling and calling them stupid and calling them dumb, all I'm doing is talking to people that are like me, that are already on the same page. So, and that's great. And I know that a lot of 92% of Black women, supposedly, because I know it's not all of us, but the 92%, a lot of them are on that same wave that I just mentioned, and that is great for them. I will never say that, I would never suggest they do anything different. But again, just like I had to step out and look at the coaching industry and look at who I am and figure out what exactly do I want, I had to do that. And what do I want? World peace. What do I want? I want our children to be educated. I want our children to know history, because history repeats itself if it's not made known. My intention is to get back to my roots as a youth minister. Before I got into coaching and mentoring adults and being a healing facilitator and a health practitioner for adults, I was ministering to the youth and their parents and youth ministry, family ministry. I want to get back to that, but not under the four walls of the church, not under the umbrella of the church. I'm finally starting to understand everything, every experience that I have gone through in life is coming full circle in 2024. Oh shit, it's 2025. 2024, everything started to come full circle, and I was like, And now in 2025, we have the podcast. We're back on YouTube. We're writing, we're doing our Substack, and we're going to be organizing. We're going to get our facility. So I have a place, a nice solid establishment, and we're moving forward. But the intention of this show is to provide a place where, the same way those young boys found comfort in people like Joe Rogan, I want young girls to come here. Lord, there we go. You guys know me, I'm not camera shy. I want young women, young people to be able to listen to this podcast and get basically what you would get from church without the religion, the wisdom. I want to fill your cup. I want to give you my takes on society and social topics. I also want to not be as aggressive as I am online. There's not a 90-minute timer or a 10-minute timer or any pressure to perform here. I'm just sitting here talking. My podcasts are no longer going to be live, because I noticed the way that I change my energy when other people are talking. If I mention something and people agree, then I get gassed up and stay on that topic for too long and don't get to what I want to talk about. So this podcast will be a little bit different with intention. This is not for my fame or namesake, for me to get rich, or, if it happens, hey, we ain't mad. But the intention of this is to help build community. When I go on YouTube and I'm looking for people talking about news and current events, I don't see a lot of people that look like me. And that could either be because it's suppressed or because they're just not there. This channel as a whole, I hope to expand. I want to have everything here. There's my fitness and health information. There'll be this podcast. And eventually I'm going to have some affirmations and meditations on here. Because again, when I go to search for those things, I either have someone that doesn't sound like me, or the women that do sound like me are very few and far between. And let's be real, most of them were in COVID, because that's when everybody was getting in their bag. So that was a very, very, 10 minutes in? 13 minutes in long introduction. I'm not going to let these go longer than 25, 30 minutes. I'll break them up into two parts. But today, the main thing we're going to cover after this introduction is the direction and what you can expect on this show. First and foremost, my priority though is prioritizing safe spaces for people like me, whether that's Black, whether that's female, whether that's queer. That does not mean that I'm excluding people that are not Black, that are not female, and that are not queer. But it has come to my attention that while I was online these past few years, there was an unconscious bias. There was an unconscious, incessant need to make white women and white men feel safe on my platforms. The amount of emotional suppression, the amount of individualistic expression that was suppressed because I was a Toastmaster and president, two-time president, because I was a church leader, or a former church leader, because I was this, because I was that. all that I saw around me for the most part was white. So when you hear me online, when you see me commenting saying that proximity to whiteness equals success and I'm calling people out on it, it's because I was that. It's because it was me. Like I get to say that because that was me. It wasn't intentional. I was raised around in a majority white society. It's just all I had ever seen. It's all I had ever known. And once I started to realize, I can be successful without this cookie cutter game plan, essentially blueprint that people have been giving me. So again, if you'd listened to me in any capacity over the years, you've heard my dissatisfaction with, first and foremost, the coaching industry. I didn't like the way that they were raising prices just because they could. I'm like, we're service providers. And for the most part, when I go get a service, I want someone that's passionate about what they do because they're going to do a good job. They're going to want to be proud of what they did. Someone that's just in it for the money is going to do what they need to do. Like, hey, did I hit the specifications? And they may go above and beyond for good customer service. But there's a difference between someone that does stuff because they give a fuck and someone that does stuff because it's part of their paycheck. You can tell. Go to a grocery store. Cashiers. There's cashiers that really love Publix. And then there's people that don't give a fuck. Right? And that's anywhere. And so my dissatisfaction with the coaching industry was that there were a lot of people that weren't passionate about what they were doing, but had found a way to do it and were just selling and regurgitating it. And the blueprints that they gave me were, I guess the best way to compare them would be like someone telling you when you need to lose weight, 1,500 calories, 10,000 steps, and a gallon of water. Will those things work? I mean, if you take a big group of people and you have all of them do it, more often than not, yeah, that'll do it. And there's people in there that won't work for a number of reasons. Maybe because they're already getting 10,000 steps. If you would have told me to get 10,000 steps to lose weight back when I did lose weight, it wouldn't have been anything because I was getting 20,000 steps a day. You see what I'm saying? If you would have told my client that I'm working with right now, who's drinking 5 gallons a day, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with her. But if you were to tell her to drink a gallon a day, again, that's not going to help her lose weight because the girl's already drinking 5. All right, you see where I'm going with this. So I noticed early on what everyone else apparently didn't notice, which is a universal truth that we see happening all over the world, which is that people do not fit into boxes. And I understand the need and the desire for companies and coaches and people to put cut and paste blueprints out there. We do it in fitness all the time. It's not because we're trying to make people that those rules don't work for feel bad. It's because it works more often than not. And it's general blanket information. The problem is that people are so focused on the success stories, the instant success stories. People are focused on the wrong things, first and foremost. And not only that, again, people are just focused on money. Because I'd like to think that if the roles were reversed and I was a business coach making $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month, that if I'm making that much money, then I can afford to give quality coaching to people. Then I can afford to take people. They told us that, gaslighting. The more people you serve, the better you are for the world. So why would you work with people one-on-one? You have to mass produce. That's such a fucking lie of capitalism. I don't know what to do. There's so much free information that I give to people, and that because I understand that when the quality is working with me, it's not the free information. And so I just over time started to see the underlying greed and capitalism in the coaching space and realized this ain't for me. And it's crazy because these are all the things that I've always known and believed. And when I look, they happened everywhere I've been. The putting people into boxes, the try this, it works for everybody. If it doesn't work for you, then I don't know what to tell you. Or if it doesn't work for you, then you're being a problem. And that's what the problem is that for those of us that don't fit into those boxes, the reason why it's not just because it's easy, but the reason why we go by that, the reason why we function like that in a society, it's because you're easier to control. It's much easier to control predictable variables. And when you have outliers, you can't really control that. And that's bad for business because business is not about outliers. Business is about predictable, repeatable income, at least in this capitalistic society. And I got to learn firsthand That's not the kind of business that I want to run, because that's not in alignment with who I am. And as I began to dig deeper, because after a while, at first I thought something was wrong with me and I'm just destined to be broke and I'm just destined to be this, that, and the other. And then I realized, no, I'm part of a revolution. I'm not the only one that believes like this. And what is that Dr. Seuss quote? If somebody doesn't say something, nothing gets done. Or I'll find the quote, but I hear that in my head a lot, the essence of it, even though I don't hear the words. If we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything. But also, unless somebody really cares a lot and does something, nothing's going to happen. And I care a lot, and I'm not alone. And that's why I'm here. I want to divest from this proximity to whiteness model, this cut and paste dry copy model that everybody has to subscribe to. I want to show people that you can be successful outside of the playing the white folks game, or the tap dancing, or if you're queer, pretending to be not queer so you can make it in the world. If you're Black, you don't have to try to act white. If you're Hispanic, you don't have to abandon your culture. If you're Native, if you're Indigenous, I want you to know, the same way that the people that came before me showed me that it was possible, I want to do that for whoever's listening. I want to help you decolonize your thinking. And it's not about just divesting from whiteness, right? It's decolonization. This is for white folks too. Learning that white is not superior. Looking at women and not judging them by the standards of what a white woman looks like, right? When you're looking at a business, not judging this business based off of will it be publicly traded one day? No, stop judging people by this idea that if it's not bigger, better, best, most expensive, top of the line, top of the food chain, that it's invaluable. That's how we got here. My intention is to create safe spaces for people that don't fit into the boxes. And I also want to help those of you that fit into those boxes divest from thinking that your box is the better box. And even if that's not an intentional thought, it's in there somewhere. So, yeah, that's where we're going with this podcast. And I want to close out with a story for you guys today, because I'm still getting back into the swing of having a podcast. And it's this story. I've got a client, he's a teacher, and I listened to the stories. One in particular, he told me after winter break, where he was gracious enough to assign a group project, but allow the students to submit their projects individually. And he said that the kids went on break, and the parents started to email him when they came back, because half the class didn't turn in their individual assignments. And not only were they saying how dare you give them a 0, but you should still let them turn it in, even though the teacher went out of his way to stress deadlines, yada, yada, yada. These parents are literally arguing with the teacher because their children didn't do what they were supposed to do. Those of us that are adults know that when you don't pay your rent, you get a late fee. You don't pay your rent enough, you get evicted. This is a part of life. And we live in a nation, I'm not going to say the world because I don't know how the rest of the world works, but we're living in a nation right now where there's a complete lack of ownership. And there always has been. Go check out my most recent TikToks. I'll probably be wearing this outfit. Lack of ownership is how we got here. America does not want to be like, hey, we fucked up. I reference this a lot, where Germany, they changed their national anthem to be like, hey, we fucked up. And America just keeps digging its heels down deeper. Why? Because of pride. I don't understand it. And so I couldn't help but see the synchronicity between my client telling me that story and me getting online and telling my story and having these white men call me a victim. They don't even know what I've been through, what I've experienced, what I've accomplished or anything. Just calling me a victim because I'm saying stuff that they don't like. And I'm challenging them in a polite discourse, the way that I'm talking now. Well, let's talk about it. What do you have to say? They tell me I'm not worth their time. They tell me I'm just a race baiter and a victim. And I'm like, okay, Mr. Mediocre, calling me a victim. I have overcome more than he could ever. However, I'm the victim. Hold on, there's a third part to the synchronicity. Today, someone posted an article that said Black women are the most educated demographic in the United States. But we're also still paid about 62% of what a white male gets. And I couldn't help but think of that man who is so ready to put me in my place and so ready to tell me how I'm, beneath him and he feels bad for me and this and that. And I'm like, sir, this system, this country, this world was set up for you to do nothing but succeed and dominate, and you're still here on TikTok being mediocre. Meanwhile, I've got more education, more experience and wisdom than you could ever wish to have. That's the energy I'm on this podcast. I'm here to educate, but I'm also not here to hold hands. There may be episodes where I hold your hand, but I'm also not going to sugarcoat, hold back, or whitewash anymore to make white men feel comfortable. Or white women. Or anyone else who has had the advantage of being the standard worldwide for beauty, the standard worldwide for success. No, this doesn't get to be your safe space. But if you're here to learn, welcome. I'm not going to humiliate you or make you feel bad as long as you're respectful. But hey, if you leave some comments on here that are interesting or on my social media, you may end up being the lesson of the day. But I hope that we're able to focus on social topics, growing together, learning from my experiences, learning through your own experiences. And I hope that as I share these nuggets of my experiences, you're able to break them down, digest them, integrate them, embody them. And in doing so, hopefully we'll actually be able to make America this wonderful place that we've been saying we have been all this time. Till next time, guys. Siobhan Speaks Social. I'll see you guys.